Deja Kelly and others that want to get this thing done and want to play games. So for you to say everybody's on the same page was a complete lie. Now, here's Adam Silver. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said Tuesday night he is tracking WNBA collective bargaining sessions very closely, and that he and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum would both be willing to join the prolonged negotiations to finalize a deal. That means when Mark Tatum is getting involved, the guy I put in the thumbnail.
Adam Silver just inserted himself into the WNBA's collective bargaining negotiations, and he's not coming to the table as a neutral mediator. The NBA commissioner made it crystal clear where he stands. Players need to compromise and get games played. Sound familiar? That's exactly what Caitlin Clark said 2 weeks ago when she broke ranks with the Players Association, and now the most powerful person in professional basketball is backing her position while the league's co-founders are scrambling to save their off-season venture. Here's what makes Silver's intervention significant. He didn't just offer to help, he specifically said both sides need to find a meeting of the minds, and that compromise is required. Then he pointed out that WNBA players deserve significantly more money based on the league's increased success. Notice what's missing from that statement? Any mention of the 50-50 revenue split the Players Association is demanding.
Silver also said he has great relationships with many of the players and believes the sides are on course for a solution. The current 40-day extension ends January 9th, and that date is fastly approaching. Okay, he says, I remain optimistic we'll get something done, but whether that means I'm physically sitting at the table for the negotiation, Silver said. And again, I speak for Mark as well. We have been involved with this league for 3 decades. In essence, I care enormously about it and want it to be successful, and I want the players to feel fairly treated as well. And I realize there's been a disconnect, especially over the last few months in these negotiations.
Silver's talking about absolute dollar increases, not percentage-based formulas. That's a direct rejection of the union's core negotiating position. The timing matters too. Silver made these comments on December 17th at the NBA Cup Finals in Las Vegas. The current CBA extension expires January 9th. That's 3 weeks to close a gap that sources are calling significant. The players want 30% of league revenue.
And now let's get to the actual video so we can get more dialogue of what Breanna Stewart had to say. They trying to hardball. The owners aren't going to give in to all this nonsense. They're trying to hardball, these players are. And at the end of the day, Adam Silver is with Caitlin Clark. Y'all need to compromise and get this damn deal done and stop playing games.
Hey, Stewie. Good to see you. I had 2 questions. The first, Adam Silver spoke ahead of the Cup and said that if necessary, he'd be up for coming to the bargaining table, him and Mark Tatum. I'm just wondering, do you think that would be beneficial? Would there be value to having Adam's presence at the bargaining table?
The WNBA is offering 15%, and Silver just told both sides to meet in the middle while explicitly rejecting the players' framework for how to calculate their shares. Watch Breanna Stewart's response carefully. She says what they're doing now isn't getting them anywhere. Translation: the Players Association's hardball strategy has failed. They opted out of the CBA back in October, expecting the league to cave on revenue sharing. Instead, they've burned through 2 extensions, watched the league announce expansion plans without them, and now face the prospect of the NBA commissioner personally sitting across the negotiating table. Stewart says she'd love to have Adam Silver join the negotiations.
What we're doing right now isn't really getting us anywhere, so if that means that Adam and Mark need to come to the table, we're more than happy to have that, and just making sure everybody understands what we want and how we feel, and realizing that both things can be true together. Everybody can agree and get what they want out of this, but there has to be some mutual, some things in common happening first. So yeah, if Adam wants to come, I would love to have him.
But listen to how she frames it. She wants to make sure everybody understands what the players want and how they feel. That's not the language of someone confident in their negotiating position. That's someone hoping Silver will pressure the owners to give in, except Silver already showed his hand. He's not coming to force a 50-50 split. He's coming to force a compromise that gets games played. Now, here's where this gets complicated for the players. Stewart admits both things can be true together and everybody can get what they want. But then she says there has to be something mutual happening first. Think about what that means. The Players Association spent 2 months demanding revenue sharing as a non-negotiable principle. They posted on Instagram mocking Silver's October comments about absolute dollars versus percentages.
And the season is going to run from fall to April, which is in direct competition with Unrivaled. What were your immediate thoughts when you heard about Project B? And what's the long-term answer for the landscape of women's basketball? Is it to have one premier league? Is it to continue developing all of these leagues? Like, what is truly the answer? What is the ideal world for the women's basketball landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think my immediate thoughts when I saw Project B, I was kind of like, well, they saw what worked. You know, they saw the success that we had here at Unrivaled, and they wanted to be a part of that in their own way and try to do it. But at the same time, knowing, what we're doing here.
Position this as a fight for equity and fairness. And now their most prominent leader is publicly acknowledging that compromise means both sides giving ground. That's a massive retreat from the union's public stance. It also creates a problem for players like Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, who founded Unrivaled, because the longer these negotiations drag out, the more obvious it becomes that they're not fighting for all players equally. This is the moment that reveals the real fracture. Stewart gets asked about Project B, the new 3-on-3 league that will run from fall through April. That schedule puts it in direct competition with Unrivaled's winter window, and watch how Stewart responds. She says Project B saw what worked at Unrivaled and wanted to be part of it in their own way. Then she pivots to talking about how special Unrivaled is because of the equity stake and the resources and keeping players in one city. But here's what she doesn't say.
Making sure the resources, people are staying in one city. Yeah, we'll have like a tour stop in Philly this year, but making sure that we're prioritizing players and their bodies and their health. And as for a long-term solution, I don't know the answer, because it's like now you have all these options. You have Unrivaled, you have WNBA potentially happening in its normal season.
She doesn't acknowledge that Project B's schedule actually aligns better with the WNBA season. She doesn't mention that players who want to stay overseas and then come back for a full WNBA season now have that option. She just dismisses it as imitation and redirects to Unrivaled's benefits. That's not analysis, that's marketing. And it exposes the conflict of interest that's been driving these negotiations from the start. Listen to this part again. Stewart says if the WNBA season isn't cohesive with everything else, then everything can't happen together. So there needs to be a world where everybody agrees, but then she admits they're not there yet. And her focus right now is Unrivaled. That's the problem in one answer. The Players Association is negotiating on behalf of all WNBA players.
Silver said ahead of NBA Cup final in Las Vegas. I talk to the people who are at the negotiating table on a daily basis. And I've said before, we, the NBA, WNBA collective, acknowledge that our players deserve to be paid significantly more than they have so far based on the increased success of the league. And it's just a question now of finding a meeting of the minds in terms of what is a fair deal.
But the players leading those negotiations are also running a competing league that benefits from a shorter WNBA season and needs the winter months protected. Caitlin Clark called this out 3 weeks ago. She said players need to compromise because games need to be played. The implication was clear. Some players are prioritizing their off-season ventures over the league that actually employs them. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert claimed all players were on the same page. That was a lie. Players like Deja Kelly and others came out supporting Clark's position. And now Adam Silver is stepping in because the negotiations have stalled precisely because of this conflict. Here's what happens next. Silver said he and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum are both willing to join the negotiations. When Mark Tatum gets involved, that signals the NBA is treating this as a serious business crisis. Tatum oversees league operations and international strategy. He doesn't show up for routine labor discussions. He shows up when deals are in jeopardy and the league needs to protect its investment. The WNBA is in the middle of a historic expansion. They're adding Golden State next season and Toronto and Portland in 26. The league just signed new media deals that will bring in $2.2 billion over 11 years. Starting in 25, they cannot afford a work stoppage or a fractured relationship with their players during this growth phase, but they also cannot set a precedent where the inmates run the asylum, which is what a 50-50 revenue split would represent for a league that still operates at a loss. So Silver is coming to impose a solution, not to negotiate, not to explore options, to impose a compromise that both sides can live with and move forward. That compromise will include significant salary increases for players. It will probably include better travel accommodations and enhanced benefits. It might even include some form of revenue sharing tied to profitability benchmarks rather than gross revenue. What it will not include is the Players Association's demand for 30% of revenue regardless of league finances. And here's why that matters for Caitlin Clark specifically. She broke ranks with the union because she understood this reality. The WNBA's growth is real but fragile. The league needs to capitalize on this moment with maximum games and maximum exposure. Anything that threatens the season or creates negative headlines undermines that growth. Clark gets it because she's the one driving the growth. Her games averaged 1.2 million viewers this season. The league average without her was 400,000. She's not being selfish by demanding compromise. She's being realistic about where the leverage actually exists. Silver sees the same thing. That's why his comments specifically mentioned increased success and absolute dollar increases. He's acknowledging that players deserve more money because the league is growing, but he's also making clear that growth is measured in dollars, not percentages. The WNBA brought in approximately $200 million in revenue this season. 30% of that is $60 million split among 144 players. That's $417,000 per player on average. Except the league also has operating costs, team expenses, expansion fees, and facility investments. The math doesn't work at 30%. It barely works at 15% given the league's current financial structure. And Silver knows this because the NBA went through the exact same evolution. The NBA didn't get to 50-50 revenue sharing until the league was wildly profitable and had decades of financial stability. The WNBA is in year 28 and just started turning the corner on viability. Demanding NBA-level revenue splits now is like demanding a penthouse when you just moved out of your parents' basement. But the Players Association backed themselves into a corner by making this about equity and fairness rather than economics. They framed it as a gender issue instead of a business issue, and now they can't back down without looking like they sold out. That's why Kathy Engelbert lied about all players being on the same page. She needed to maintain the illusion of unity because the moment that cracks, the entire negotiating strategy collapses. Except it already cracked. Caitlin Clark cracked it. And then players who actually want to play basketball cracked it further. And now Adam Silver is about to shatter it completely by forcing both sides to accept reality. The reality is that WNBA players deserve more money. The reality is also that the league cannot afford to pay them based on revenue percentages that ignore profitability. Both things are true. And compromise means accepting both truths simultaneously. Watch what happens over the next 3 weeks. The Players Association will either accept a deal that includes significant raises but not revenue sharing, or they'll watch Adam Silver and Mark Tatum walk into that room and impose a framework that neither side loves, but both sides can survive, because that's what compromise actually looks like. Not everybody getting what they want, but everybody getting something they can live with so the league can move forward. Breanna Stewart said her focus right now is unrivaled. That tells you everything about why these negotiations stall. The players who should be most invested in maximizing WNBA growth are instead focused on their side venture. The players who are invested in WNBA growth, like Caitlin Clark, are calling for compromise. Or do they try one more push for revenue sharing? And more importantly, how does Caitlin Clark navigate this when the deal gets announced? Does she stay quiet, or does she make it clear she was right all along? Drop your predictions in the comments. And if you think the Players Association played this correctly, explain how. Because from where I'm sitting, they're about to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between leverage and wishful thinking.